You see a dog on the other side of the street, and your hand is already moving. Not metaphorically, physically. Your arm has begun to extend. Not after you decided to pet it, before. Your body made that decision without asking you, and now you are crouched on a stranger's front step, speaking in a voice you have never used in a meeting, saying things like, "Oh, who's a serious little guy?" to a corgi who has absolutely no idea what you're saying and does not care. And the strangest part isn't the crouch, it isn't the voice, it's the fact that this is happening to virtually every human being on Earth across every culture, every language, every era of recorded history. The urge to reach out and touch a living creature is so deeply embedded in your nervous system that scientists are only now beginning to understand what it's actually doing. And the answer is far stranger than you'd expect. Let's start with what your brain is doing the moment you see an animal. It is not, as most people assume, simply registering something pleasant. What's actually happening is closer to a hijacking. In 1943, an Austrian zoologist named Konrad Lorenz proposed something that sounded almost too simple at the time. He noticed that certain physical proportions, large eyes relative to the face, a high rounded forehead, a small nose, soft rounded limbs, triggered an immediate caregiving response in adult humans. He called it Kindchenschema, baby schema. The idea was that human infants evolved these features deliberately, not randomly, because infants that triggered caregiving instincts in the adults around them survived. The ones that didn't. Evolution built a visual trigger directly into your perceptual system, and it does not check species. When researchers at Oxford put adults inside fMRI scanners and showed them photographs of infant animals, puppies, kittens, bear cubs, the orbitofrontal cortex lit up within milliseconds. The orbitofrontal cortex is the region of your brain associated with reward, with emotional salience, with the computation of value. Looking at a baby animal isn't a passive experience. Your brain is doing something measurable, something intense, something it reserves for stimuli it considers genuinely important. It is responding the way it responds to things that matter. And this is all happening before you've moved a single muscle. Here's the layer that most people never think about. Touch itself, the actual physical sensation of contact, is not one sense. It is a collection of them. Your skin is covered in several distinct types of mechanoreceptors, each tuned to different signals. Some register pressure, some detect vibration, some respond to temperature. But there is one specific class of nerve fiber, identified and characterized in detail by researcher Francis McGlone and his colleagues, called C-tactile afferents. These fibers are narrow, unmyelinated, and slow. They do not transmit information about location or intensity the way the fast-moving nerves do. What they transmit is something more specific. They respond optimally to soft, slow, stroking contact at a speed of roughly 1 to 10 centimeters per second. And they send their signals not to the sensory cortex, not to the part of the brain that maps where you were touched, but to the insula and the anterior cingulate cortex, areas associated with emotion, with social connection, with the sense of safety and belonging. These fibers were not built to tell you that something is touching you. They were built to make that touch feel meaningful. When you run your hand slowly through a dog's fur, you are activating C-tactile afferents almost perfectly. The warmth, the texture, the gentle resistance, the slow, continuous movement. It is as if fur and that particular nerve system were calibrated to interface with each other, which, over tens of thousands of years of coevolution, they may literally have been. And once those fibers fire, the chemistry changes. A team at the University of Azabu in Japan, led by researcher Miho Nagasawa, documented something that is almost difficult to believe when you first read it. When a human and a dog make eye contact, both experience a measurable spike in oxytocin. Oxytocin is the neuropeptide associated with bonding, released between mothers and infants, between romantic partners, between close friends in moments of genuine connection. Nagasawa's team found that the longer the mutual gaze, the higher the oxytocin spike. And crucially, this effect was present in the dog as well as the human. You are not simply projecting warmth onto an animal. You are both entering a shared neurochemical state, one that evolved to bind parents to children and bind social creatures to one another. You pet a stranger's dog for 40 seconds, and both of you walk away with elevated bonding hormones. This is not a coincidence. It is not even surprising once you understand what came before it. It is the product of something like 15,000 years of mutual adaptation, maybe 40,000, depending on which archaeological evidence you consult. The oldest confirmed dog burial site places a human hand deliberately resting on the animal. Someone, 40,000 years ago, decided their dog deserved to be buried the way a person would be buried, and they arranged the body so the two were touching. Humans and dogs have been living together long enough that they have changed each other, biologically, in measurable ways. Dogs track human eye gaze spontaneously. Wolves raised by humans from birth do not. Dogs follow a human pointing gesture to find food. Wolves, even familiar ones, do not. These are not trained behaviors, they are built in. And researchers studying the facial anatomy of dogs found something almost too elegant. A specific muscle, the levator anguli oculi medialis, present in dogs and either absent or dramatically underdeveloped in wolves. This muscle is responsible for the inner brow raise, the furrowed brow, the wide eyes, the expression that does something to your chest when a dog looks up at you. Dogs did not stumble into that expression. They evolved it. Over thousands of generations, dogs that were better at triggering emotional responses in humans were more likely to be kept close, fed, sheltered, and allowed to reproduce. The puppy's eyes that make something collapse in your chest are the result of an evolutionary arms race in which dogs were competing for your neurological attention and winning. You did not domesticate dogs. You domesticated each other. But why the compulsion? Why does the pull feel so strong that you sometimes reach out before you've made a conscious decision? This is where neuroscience starts to sound a little like philosophy. When your brain identifies something as a source of reward, it doesn't simply note that information and wait for instructions. It initiates approach behavior. The dopaminergic circuits that generate motivation, the same ones that pull you toward food when you're hungry, toward warmth when you're cold, fire in response to the anticipated reward, not the received one. You are being pulled toward the animal before you've touched it because your brain has already modeled what touching it will feel like and decided it wants that. There's also a phenomenon that psychologist Oriana Aragon at Clemson University spent years studying, what she calls dimorphous expression, more popularly known as cute aggression. The urge, when confronted with something overwhelmingly appealing, to squeeze it, bite it, say you want to eat it, make small, mock-aggressive gestures toward it. If you have ever looked at a puppy and felt a completely irrational desire to aggressively scrunch its entire face, that is not a malfunction. That is your brain generating a regulatory counter-response to manage the volume of positive emotion it's receiving. When the reward signal is too large to process smoothly, the nervous system creates a small, opposing signal to re-establish equilibrium. The desire to squish the puppy is your nervous system's way of handling the fact that the puppy is, neurologically speaking, too much. Your brain is overwhelmed. It is not handling this gracefully. This is, apparently, correct behavior. Now consider what happens when this need goes unmet. Touch deprivation is a clinical reality. It produces measurable changes in cortisol levels, in immune function, in mental health outcomes. Research conducted during periods of enforced social isolation found consistently that people with pets showed lower rates of depression and anxiety, lower baseline stress hormones, better overall well-being. And researchers were careful to distinguish between companionship in general, the presence of another living thing in the space, and the physical contact specifically. The evidence pointed to contact as the active ingredient, the hand on the fur, the warm weight in the lap, the actual tactile experience. James Serpell at the University of Pennsylvania has spent decades documenting this effect, and what he keeps finding is that the benefit isn't abstract. It isn't about having company, it is about touch. Repeated, low-intensity, gentle touch from a living body. Patients recovering from surgery who receive animal-assisted therapy request less pain medication. Children undergoing stressful medical procedures show measurably lower cortisol responses when a therapy animal is present and within reach. In schools, stress hormones in children before high-stakes tests drop when a dog is present and accessible, not observed, not watched, touched. 10 to 15 minutes of contact with an animal produces statistically significant drops in cortisol and statistically significant rises in oxytocin. Your nervous system responds that quickly. It knows what it needs, and it knows when it's getting it. This is worth pausing on. For the vast majority of human existence, for hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors were surrounded by living things. Animals they worked alongside, animals they raised, animals that slept near them for warmth. The clean, temperature-controlled, animal-free environments that many people now consider normal are, in evolutionary terms, almost incomprehensibly new. Your brain did not evolve in a world without animals. It evolved in a world saturated with them. It expects them. Its baseline assumptions include the presence of warm, soft, living bodies nearby. When you reach out toward a dog and feel something in your shoulders ease, that is not sentiment. That is your nervous system returning to a condition it was designed for. The tension that most people carry as a background hum of modern life, the low-level vigilance, the ambient stress, was never meant to be your resting state. Your brain evolved in a world where warmth from another body meant safety, where soft fur under your hand meant you were not alone, not exposed, not at risk. The sense of calm that rolls through you when a dog leans into your leg is ancient. It predates language. It predates cities. It predates almost everything you would recognize as civilization. The urge to pet every animal you encounter isn't a personality quirk. It isn't an endearing distraction. It is a deep biological signal pointing at something your body knows it needs, something that most modern environments quietly withhold. The concrete and glass and climate-controlled offices are new. The need they are failing to meet is not. So the next time your hand moves toward a stranger's dog, before your brain has quite caught up with what your body is doing, that's not weakness. That's not embarrassment. That's 15,000 years of co-evolution and a nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do. You were never going to walk past that dog. If the science of why you are the way you are is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night in the best possible way, subscribe. A new video drops every week, and it goes exactly this deep every time.